Hi, Molly. What a significant day it is today, not only here at the United Nations, but outside of the UN in New York as well. We know that yoga ceremonies and commemorating this event are taking place at the heart of the world, known as Times Square as well. Can you talk about the prevalence of yoga and how it has branched out around the world and why you think the reason is?
Right. Look at the journey, Susan, that the International Yoga Day really has had since 2014. That was when the Indian Prime Minister, of course, spearheaded those efforts to institutionalize the 21st of June as International Day of Yoga. This is the 9th edition, the 9th International Day of Yoga. The Indian Prime Minister spearheading that event, leading the International Yoga Day celebrations right here at the United Nations headquarters in New York is symbolic in itself. And talking about how yoga as a practice is a way of life, just to quote his words, and also the Guinness World Record now of the most number of nationalities engaging in that yoga session in itself is an incredible feat. And the messaging, Susan, about yoga as a practice and India being at the forefront of spreading that message is a very strong one through this event. And we have seen how events have been arranged across India, across the United States, and the very fact that we've seen several missions and embassies around the world actually engaging in yoga events. And every time such a celebration or an event takes place, Susan, and India. And why not? Naturally, because India has emerged as the number one global ambassador as far as yoga as a practice is concerned and being a way of life is concerned. The theme of International Yoga Day as well, signifying yoga for Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that has been the overarching message and the theme as far as celebrations here are concerned. Personalities from around the world who have participated in this yoga event. That's just a sample of the celebrations, of course, like you mentioned. The celebrations have panned out around the United States, of course in India, and around the world as well. And that in itself tells you about how far along the practice has come. The prevalence of yoga here in New York as well. We've been seeing how the number of yoga studios have only mushroomed. And it's interesting to see how people with their yoga mats have been practicing yoga. We saw for ourselves here at Central Park, at Times Square. And that's just a glimpse of how popular yoga really has become, not just here in the United States, but around the world. And that is a success in itself for India's soft power, which has been at full display today at that grand event.
Yeah, very well said. And you know, you talk about India's soft power, and really this event and yoga is really a tool for diplomacy at the end of the day. There's no other way to say it for India. We actually just saw Prime Minister Modi's motorcade leave the United Nations, and the scene that we saw was a lot of Indian Americans with little Indian flags in their hand waving and cheering him on as his motorcade left the United Nations. But he has quite a journey moving forward from outside of New York into Washington now, where this very serious discussions are going to take place. Molly, can you talk about that for us a little bit?
Indeed, Susan, the Indian Prime Minister is just getting started as far as his crucial maiden state visit to the United States here is concerned. The very fact that he has visited the United States 5 times earlier, but this is his maiden state visit, which is, of course, the highest expression of friendly bilateral ties between the two sides. That in itself tells you the significance of the relationship, how far along it has come, and the importance that the two sides are attaching to this association and the potential that this collaboration cooperation really has. So this, of course, has been only the first leg, the first engagement, the first set of engagements here in New York, and post which we will, of course, see the engagements panning out in Washington, D.C. It's a jam-packed schedule for the Indian Prime Minister. Like I said, he's only getting started. We are going to see back-to-back engagements in Washington, D.C. There's going to be that crucial bilateral meeting with the U.S. President, of course, the state dinner, the ceremonial welcome. We are going to see the Indian Prime Minister also addressing the joint session of the U.S. Congress. We are going to be also getting our viewers the key takeaways from his engagements with the key business delegates, and which is a very important facet of his entire visit when it comes to forging closer business ties, when it comes to stronger people-to-people ties, and also the defense cooperation, which is only going to get upgraded from here onwards, thanks to the defense announcements which are on the cards. And speaking of which, ISET, the initiative on critical and emerging technology, has been a very important cornerstone as far as the engagement is concerned and defense cooperation is concerned, and which is why the sharing of technology and the lifting of barriers that has been the overarching theme as far as this visit is concerned is one of the many key takeaways. But then the deliverables, Susan, as Jake Sullivan also earlier put it, are not just the bullet points on paper. It's overall about lifting of barriers as far as the cooperation between the two sides is concerned. And then, of course, we will have the Indian Prime Minister also engaging and addressing addressing the Indian diaspora. And the Indian Americans here in New York have been leaving no stone unturned already, who have given out that warm welcome to the Indian Prime Minister. We're going to see more of that happening in Washington, D.C., of course, where he will be where he will be addressing the Indian diaspora and will be welcomed by the Indian American community there as well.